You're listening to QCast, presented by Qcella Media. Please consider giving generously to Qcella's nonprofit mission. To find out more about our mission and to make a donation, visit our website at qcast.qcella.org. Your tax-deductible donation will help us continue bringing you quality podcasts just like this one.
I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. You can't take away my soul. You tried to tell me I don't count, but I know in my heart that's not true. So you cannot take me down that path. I'll make it without you. I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. My life counts for something, and you wake up and I'll be gone. You'll know that you were wrong.
Welcome to my show, Shades of Gender. I'm your host, Terry Ryan. Each show we're going to be talking about gender identity, including transgenders, cross-dressers, gender fluid, and non-binary gender individuals, and all those who self-identify with these groups. The definitions of these groups are often misunderstood and certainly misused. Our goal is to identify these groups, listen to their stories and their journeys in life, to get a better understanding of who they are and how they're doing in society. So I'm very pleased to be again in season 2, and I have a guest on coming actually up from San Diego, who is named Anita. Hi, Anita.
Hi.
How you doing? Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. How was your trip up?
It went smoothly.
Not bad, right?
Yeah, not too bad.
Like 2 hours?
Yeah, about that. Google sent me through, what was it, Hemet, though?
Hemet?
I had no idea.
Wow, what were you doing
Yeah.
up in Hemet?
I don't know either, to be honest.
That's really funny.
Just what Google
was that
did.
215? Oh, they send you through the 215 up through Hemet, which means you're up on the side of the mountain, right?
A little bit of that. Yeah, not too bad.
Not too much. Yeah. Okay. So that's okay. Well, welcome.
Thank
you know, as I say, we're radio. They can't see you. You're tall. You're dark hair, attractive, and I know, but you need to tell me how you identify on the gender scale.
I identify as a male cross-dresser.
Okay. Which is the standard term, which we've listened to a lot of different terms tonight that are one of the same thing. So as a male crossdresser, first of all, welcome. I don't know how much you've been out. I mean, we talked a little bit about, I know you just a little bit maybe for the audience, personally, where you are in your life, married, single, what kind of profession you're in, et cetera.
Yeah, so I've been married to my wife for 11 years now. And I am, I guess, I would still say closeted, but I do manage to make my way out. I've managed to make my way out enough to where I've lost track of the number of times I've been out.
And this is during the day, at night, by yourself?
Both.
With have you gone
Usually
to
by
group?
myself. I haven't really found groups to do things with. I have managed to rope my wife into going with me, which is maybe unusual for a cross-dresser.
It happens.
It
just depends on the relationship
Yeah.
and where kind of their own relationship. But when you say you've gone with your wife, obviously, who knows that you're a cross-dresser. Did she know before you got married?
She knew shortly beforehand. So I
Like
had
the day
some,
before you got married?
It wasn't quite that close, but we had a relatively short engagement. And I think somewhere in there, she had found a pair of high heels in the closet and put together that these high heels are pretty big and maybe they're his. And they were. And I tried to, push it off at first, but then I did sheepishly admit
Right. When you see a size 13 shoe in your closet, it's usually a dead giveaway. So I don't. The shoes used to be Fredericks of Hollywood for the larger sizes. Where are the larger sizes these days?
Nordstrom Rack.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
They're
Yeah,
actually
Nordstrom
good.
Rack is a great place for it. Yeah, in fact, we have a when I'm in Chicago, I go to one there that's a big store, and they'll have they do go all the way up to, I think, 13.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
about-
even a 14
maybe even
here
a
and there.
14 here. But it is funny that it was back down. I'm a 6.5, so it intersects with the size 13s, and you're right. I'm usually surrounded by one or two crossdressers or trans there, trying on shoes, ballet flats, often lower. I'm always trying to be taller, and they're trying to be shorter. But some pumps, some really nice, cool shoes. But so she found it, and then you had to say. So how did you deal with that conversation when your wife says, hey, what is this?
It was, if I remember right, it really was a pretty short discussion. It wasn't, and for one thing, at that period of time, I might have had some shoes lying around. I might have worn them now and then, but I wasn't cross-dressing very much at that point in time.
So you didn't have she didn't open up in a closet, and you didn't have coordinated clothes with shoes matching.
No,
and,
I didn't have a closet like that at that point in time. And
There's never enough closet spaces, especially when
really
you have two
isn't.
genders plus your wife. You almost have to buy another house for that. A little
It gets
doll.
complicated.
It does get complicated, right? Because it takes room. So you had odds and ends of pieces that you've pulled together that that you hadn't. Had you purged in your past where you had
Yes,
Yeah, that's a
yes.
common thing to do is purge. I can't, and we should back up actually with when you actually started realizing that you were into cross-dressing. I mean, when you were a child, what was your childhood like? Did you associate with clothing early on, or?
So I played baseball. I had little cars. I did all the boy things, and I really...
Where'd you grow up? In
San Diego.
area.
And so, so it wasn't until I was, I'd say, around 10 or so. And
you're tall, so you must play
Yeah.
basketball.
I tried. I wasn't very good at it.
Most
so.
people aren't. It's a hard sport.
And so, I think I was around 10 or so, though.
Yeah. And then was it some people it's clothes, other people it's like the feminine things. I mean, did you like the dolls and things? I mean, did you like the clothes? Is that what
It was, I'd say, the first thing that I probably noticed was the shoes. And then
shoes
underwear.
are pretty common. Yeah,
Yeah.
shoes are like almost a dead giveaway. It's like, because shoes are, And then the whole thing. So do you have sisters? Did you have sisters that were there when you were just your mom?
Yeah, just my mom.
Okay. And so, did you try them on, or did you, go in there? Did you get caught? I mean, it's hard not to.
Did get caught. And I think that did actually cause me to really have a hard time with things for quite a while.
Right.
Because
you're
did not
chastised.
go well.
No, I'm sure it did. Yeah. And then it gets into those hard lines, right? You're a man or you're a boy. You don't put girl stuff on. And
Right.
I think it's funny. I think a lot of that generation, I don't know, 70s, 80s, 60s. I think they were so concerned they wouldn't have probably even figured out about cross-dressing or trans. They probably would have thought you're just gay.
I mean,
You know what I mean? They're so afraid of you and being, you're gay. Because, and a lot of people.
I even think back to like how my parents reacted to some things and if they wondered that. And
I think they're more afraid of
yeah.
you being gay because I don't even think they're first, maybe now, I mean, for the younger audience, they may say, you're trans or you're a crossdresser or you're gender fluid. But, back 20 years ago or even probably 10, it would be like, you're gay. And I don't know how to deal with you being gay because you're we want you to be our athlete and our male in the family, so you can't be gay. But I really think that's more the fear in the parents than anything. Mm-hmm. And maybe the violation of being in their stuff.
Yeah.
Which I know my mother caught me one time. I was looking at her perfume. I was like 12 and I loved it. My mom wore Chanel. And, I was in there and she had a little note, a love letter that she had written my dad, and she was a very good writer. And I remember reading it, but I felt so guilty for being in there, and I don't think I don't know if she ever, I did, she might've caught me, just going in with her Chanel, but it was, and I'm a girl, it's like a girl looking at mom's perfume. But if you're in there with her nylons, she's like, and by this point you're probably 5'11" or 6 feet or whatever you are. What are you doing with my nylon? So, but there is part of that too, I think, right? Maybe a violation. Mm-hmm. So you kind of shelves it then, right? It screwed you up. Did you ever get, did you think it would just go away and that maybe it was a phase that you were going through and that it wasn't important, right? Because you're a physician.
Yeah.
So you went you had a lot of school going on, right? You were a great
Yeah.
student. I mean, you sound like you're kind of all around success in many ways, right?
I
Good at school.
would like to think so.
Yeah, you were an athlete probably. You were doing, you were probably successful in layers of your life, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right. And they were proud of you as you were. So you're
Yeah.
thinking, how important is this? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think over different periods of time, this was of different levels of importance to myself as well. And so there were periods of time where it would almost subside completely. And, and also it's like doing what I did. I moved a fair amount. And I think that might have been part of the reason why I would, have a purge. It's like you're not going to necessarily move all the stuff that you've collected.
Right. It makes it tough, doesn't
Yeah,
it? I mean, like
yeah.
we were talking about with Gail and putting things in a bag, like a gym bag or something or a ski bag. It's like you can't. It's not stationary, so you don't know if someone's going to be going through stuff and
Yeah.
go, whoa, whose size
Yeah.
13 shoes are these?
Right.
Right.
When you have roommates, you don't want to have that conversation.
Right, you really don't, because it just opens the door for something that you don't even quite understand yourself. How do you explain that? So you went to medical school, undergrad down in San Diego area.
I did go to undergrad there and then have been all around the country since.
Right. And so you had your focus would appear to be then getting your education. I mean, because you did have a passion. Yeah. What made you become a doctor?
That's a good question. I think it was a combination of seeing some of my family members being ill and wanting to help people because of that. My grandma had cancer. My dad had cancer. He actually had a form of lymphoma that would go on to diagnose a fair number of times.
So
later
you were
on.
living with your dad fighting cancer when you were younger?
This was when I was a young child, and so he had a form of lymphoma when I was young, and it was fairly traumatic to go through. Yeah.
Totally. And how long did he live with this?
He's still alive now.
Oh,
and
he
this
is?
So this is something where, and to be honest, I think he came out with a very, in some ways, lucky to have that
diagnosis
at that period of time.
Exactly, because they usually died back then.
It was not
there wasn't
as good
a lot
as it is now.
There's
as far as
medication and the treatments, right? It was radiation
Yep.
for sure, and then if your system could handle that, that's all you had is to burn it out, right? So I don't know what year this would be, but it would be.
Yeah, this was mid '80s, so it was much different than now.
Right, people are living now with cancer, but he lived through it. So you went through, you couldn't help him, and you probably, as a young child, wanted to help your dad. You felt like so horrible.
It's just like, I think that, and then seeing my grandma as well with cancer. It was just, I think
that was his mom.
It was actually my mom's mom, and so
you're just bombarded. By
it was just
early.
Seeing that, I think, is what pushed me in that direction.
Right. So you wanted to give back and help these people. Did your grandmother live for a while, or did she?
Oh, she didn't live that long. No.
Don't we love our grandmothers? Yeah, I love my two grandmothers. I think they saved me. Two in their own ways. So you go through school, you go through your residency, you're working, you meet your current wife. This is your first wife and only wife. Okay. And how long have you been together?
We've been together 12 years or 12 and a half and married 11.
11. And you had the conversation with her before you got married about the cross-dressing.
It was just it was kind of like I have these shoes. And I mean, she's like, I can handle it. And I said, well, yeah, they are mine. But it wasn't a very deep conversation then. And so, I mean, in some ways, I wish I had more coherently tried to address it then, but it was scary. And, it's like, it's just one of those things where you don't want to put that burden on somebody else either. And so, and also it wasn't something that I felt was, it wasn't as important to me then as it is now.
Right.
It's like it's something that has developed more since then.
Yeah, it kind of goes with the territory as we get older. But I suppose it's like in anything, right? Life becomes, as we get older, we have maybe more time to think. We're trying to achieve something. And then as we get older, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have a moment to think about who I am. So in all fairness, I always felt it was kind of unfair. You bring it up, and I've heard a lot of wives or ex-wives, say, well, he didn't tell me, and he didn't tell me, and I feel like I was lied and cheated to. And it's like, well, maybe he wasn't sure himself.
Yeah, I think that
and you got to give him a bit of a break. I mean, I understand, because I've gone through that since I was married to a CD, but I mean, I never really, the behavior was more self-absorbed, which was part of what I had a hard time with. And I always say, I did a lot of writing on sites, on CD sites and relationships. And I used to say, just beware. If it's one thing to be a crossdresser, most women, if you do have a connection and it's a pretty stable relationship, will accept that as long as you look out for her feelings and she doesn't totally lose her husband. One, that if she's straight and she doesn't want to be just you in your woman mode all the time, and that you treat her as a woman that she is, not, and let her know that there's some sanity in that relationship, that you still are you, and that she hasn't lost you, because there's a lot of fear in who you are. And then not be all about you. Because I see so many crossdressers that come out and gender fluid, and even, TG said it's like their little girl came out, or their ability to be able to finally have free reign with a partner who's going to accept them and feel good about it. But then it becomes so self-absorbed, the very person that they love the most is the one that they're abusing.
Yeah.
And they're doing it, and they're not doing it on purposely, but they're purposefully. They're doing it because they're so self-absorbed in their own journey. And anyone so absorbed in their own journey, I mean, my goodness, it could be anything. It's like if you're in a partnership, you don't suddenly, after 12 years, start saying, okay, now it's going to be 95% about me, and I don't really care what you do. And that's how it comes across. And I do think that's where a lot of the disconnect is. I strongly believe that if those kind of things are addressed, that a relationship it can work. And then it's probably laying out, like anything, some boundaries on, who knows, how far some people can play act, some people can sexually bring it into their sex life and make it fun. Other people it just depends on what kind of religious background they came from, how they feel, what their self-esteem is. What your partner's self-esteem is, it's like very complicated. And I don't even know if therapy really helps. I mean, I think therapy is to fix something, and you're not really there to fix it. You're just trying to figure out how to integrate it. I've heard stories in Seattle. There's a gender fluid crossdresser person that I first met years ago, that the way they worked it out, I think he was a professor, and he would have a dollhouse outside, and that was his dollhouse. And he would go out he was very involved with the groups, and he would go out, keep his things in there, like a shed instead of a tool shed. You have a dollhouse. And then go out with the girls to many of the events involved, and do it maybe, once a week or whatever, once every couple weeks. And, that was it. But so it's all different. So when your relationship now, how, baby steps, I guess, but, how's that going? I mean, has she, where are you at in terms of her accepting you, and have you been able to get more freed up, or do you think it still has a lot of work?
I mean, it's a work in progress for sure.
You have kids too, right?
No, we don't have any children.
Okay, that's right. No
yeah,
kids.
we have a cat and a dog, which is more than enough for us.
Oh, that's a lot of work. Yeah, I love
it really is.
But it is.
Yeah. So, I think, I mean, it's something where, like you were saying, it's like I have to be respectful to her wishes as well, and not just push an agenda of mine that she's not on board with. And so, she doesn't, I think part of it is she has a protective instinct, in that she doesn't want me going out and doing something which could get me hurt even, and or not accepted. And I think part of, I mean, she's, I'd say moderately supportive, not, or probably better than that. She is supportive, and but she does have concerns. And so, it's just, I think I do try to, keep that in mind. It's maybe it's like there's some communication that could be better on both of our ends sometimes that would help to make it a little better.
It's hard to find the words, though, isn't
Yeah,
it? You know,
it
it
is.
really is hard to find the words. I don't
Right.
know. At least I found that with myself. I just don't know. It's just hard to talk about it because you're not fully understanding it yourself, or at least I don't know. I mean, why do you find it difficult, you know, to be able to kind of go deeper into it and
Well, I think there's two factors. One is just not wanting it to consume so much of myself.
right,
Which is
not
part of
just
it.
be just that one, you know, myopic or you
Right.
know, like that's who I am.
Yeah,
Right. I mean,
exactly.
you've worked in so many other areas of your life with and continue to, right? You don't want it just
Yeah.
to define you as, right?
And because I do
That's
think
fair.
of it as a small percentage of myself. It's an aspect of myself. It's an important aspect of myself. It's something that I had to come to terms with, but it's not the dominant aspect of it. I walk
Mm-hmm.
around in general, regular male attire most of the time, not because I don't want to, but because that's just what I want to be
Right.
dressed as most of the time.
Right.
And so I just need the outlet and trying to find that outlet. And, it's just like, that's, I think, where, I'm struggling right now is how to best, figure out how to integrate the outlet when I need it.
Right. And you know what? I think this is, the classic definition of crossdresser, a difference between transgender and crossdresser is, crossdresser like to present and trans really are, self-identifying the opposite gender or a different gender they were born into. I don't think that's really it. I personally think the cross-dressing or cross-dressers are, well, first of all, cross-dressing probably should be more of an adjective than a noun, and that's why everyone struggles with it. In other words, there's a word that it's going to have about 100 different names. I also see it on questioning and, oh my goodness, it's for a show that doesn't want to get hung up on labels. I surely use a lot of labels with my guests, but so I'm going to go back to cross dresser, but I only because it does say we know it's more than about the dress. There is a femme role to that, but it's not an all consuming. It's part of who you are, but you're still a male who has this femme part of themselves that likes to dress.
Yeah.
So and it's part of who you are, and the reason it becomes more prominent is because so many people have shelved it down in this community and thought there was, they were chastised that if they got caught that there's something wrong with them, or religiously they said, "My God, you're going to hell," or they had they didn't understand it themselves. So as they get older, it's like, oh, okay. So I think, I don't know, but I have found the groups are really, really helpful now. We're talking with Gail, an earlier guest, about finding so many people online and having these groups, and then going to some of the conferences, because I can say that the cross dressers that I've met, these are just, most of those are for like there was just one on the East Coast. That was, I forgot the name of it, but, and there's Sparkle, I believe, is another one. And then there's, of course, the Vanity Club, which is started for cross-dressers. Sometimes, because that was actually the original groups. The trans gender came later as more people got out. Some of and got into their self-awareness, they said, "Oh my goodness, I really, yes, I really did want to become a girl." So there is still that percentage that really want that go. But I would, and I think a lot of women that are married to a cross-dresser that don't understand it may think that, oh, they're going to want to become a woman. And I think that's what gets confusing for relationships and people. But I've found in my experience that probably, a quite small percentage really want to just toss up their genetic or who they are born with, and also as a gender, and also, to become the opposite gender.
Yeah, I think the time, like the pathway is quite distinctly different too, and so
It is distinctly. And what I'm finding, and I'm so happy, really. And now I think we've done 20 shows or close to, or more than that probably. But and then all the years, so 6 years of writing and meeting and in the gender identity, and it's finally, I feel so good about this as we can have this conversation, and for the audience and for for myself and my guests, that it started kind of becoming clearer on where the groups lie, and that there is a difference. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing that the transgender woman that I met, there was really clearly a self-identification, usually early on as a woman or a little girl. Mm-hmm. Now, again, it's shades, because it doesn't mean everyone has to be 3 years old, and it doesn't mean that, they saw it at 3. Everyone has their own journey. But there was kind of like, well, when are my breasts coming when they were never going to come? That I've heard that said before. So there are the shades, and there probably still are shades. It just depends on the individual. But I think there are distinct groups. Mm-hmm. And I from what you're saying too, is there's a lot of cross-dressers out there. Mm-hmm. Old term, lots out there. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe we'll never understand why. Maybe the why is not as important as having the support and being able to just be a part of your life and be able to find ways to do that and have a balanced life, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, because that is something where it's like, you can ask yourself why all day long.
Yeah, I haven't had any answers. I mean, honestly, I don't think there is any answer. I mean, I don't think anyone knows, I mean,
you don't look for it, I'll tell you that.
Honestly, there's psychiatrists, psychologists say, no, it's just, it's part of, it's wanting to present. There's more definitions on and more, again, new labels, but no one really knows why. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's even the research has identified the chromosomes or it just doesn't seem to fit into any, it seems like a separate species. I'm going to call it, or a species. There's a separate species. And because there's nothing, wrong with that, but really they just don't know. And I think, the medical field really doesn't know. So, and I'm not so sure. So I think rather than focusing on the why, maybe how do you make it work in your relationship,
yeah, exactly.
your kids, do you tell your kids, is it necessary, to you, what do you do when you get caught? There's always a story. And then having a support group, because I think in anything that is been hidden or you're just kind of getting into or you're trying to understand, right? I mean, like it's like a 12-step or at least I don't even know if it's 12-step or like the TRIAS groups, that support groups, which are, the groups nationally. Mm-hmm. I think it was Victoria Prince who started that and on the East Coast. And she actually went on, it was a cross-dresser, and she went on, some cross-dressers got upset with it because she went on and became trans. Mm. So, but she was the one who originally set out the groups, these TRIAS groups, and there's chapters throughout. So I always say for some of the cross-dressers coming out is to really check out these groups. And you'll, like any group, there's just different levels of self-awareness, different people that you may want to be with. Most of them are closed meetings. Some bring their wives or their significant others, and then they go out together. And then they form friendships. And so it's very individualistic. But I think, truly the resources are there. Do you have that down in San Diego? Do you know? Have you checked?
I don't think that particular organization
Orange
is still
County
there.
has one.
Okay. That would be good
Newport
to know.
Beach.
Okay. That is good to know.
Yeah, you should all know that. They have a Newport Beach. Kind of coveted. I spoke with them a few years ago, but I'm sure they're still around. All different age groups. Some of the younger ones are coming in. But they're that you should check into it. They're certainly, and the conferences again are good. I think I mentioned this before, but I've been wanting to do like a red stiletto. I called it my conference for the girls that are driving distance. Maybe it's fly in as it takes off, but there's plenty out there to come in and do like a 3-day, shoes, facials, shows, go out to dinner, and that thing. And I think that's, that would,
Sounds
I
like
still
fun.
like to do that. Yeah, I still would like to form that because I just think that's a, kind of thing to do. So do you find it important to actually, as a physician and I know a student, do you feel it's important to to balance your work life, to be dressed as a woman, dressed in your femme self, or is that not really important to you?
No, I think I really keep that
Separate.
at least at this point in time.
It's not important enough for you to.
And so it would just bring in different layers of complication. I don't feel like it's, for one thing, it's seeing patients like that would be, for most part, it would be uncomfortable, I think, for many patients. And so it's just it's a matter of, it probably can exist on some level somewhere, but it's like, me personally, I don't think that's something I would want to do.
Well, you know what? I also, from cross-dressers, I mean, sometimes they just wear panties. I mean, if you're really a cross-dresser, and you're into the clothes and whatever, for whatever reason, we don't know. But it's not necessarily the makeup and the hair and the whole thing. I mean, there's kind of a appeal of, or maybe I have a friend who's gender fluid cross-dresser who wears a lot of ballet slipper type, They incorporated in some different jewelry. They incorporated kind of in this way that is, if you take notice and you look closely, you may notice, but really just kind of blends in, to their life and works for them because they're dealing with people that you're not wanting to put another layer of people to be critical or fair. Most of the things I think is like fair if you're around something and not understanding. I think part of, and you correct me on this if I'm wrong, but part of what I've noticed with cross-dressers is because there's no really why or who or definitive. It's a little bit more mixed up in terms of understanding that. So if someone says to you, well, why are you doing it? It's like, well, I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah,
I have no answer. I don't know
either.
what to tell you. And maybe I didn't tell you, I didn't make a big thing of it early in marriage because I don't know, back 15 years ago or 12 or 20 years ago, no one was talking about it and it didn't seem that big. I mean, I know I did it, but I didn't really, it wasn't like as deep and dark and heavy as it would appear to be, even though yes, I know it's there, but it wasn't like, I don't know. I mean, I really kind of hoped it would go away and it didn't. So
yeah, I think that definitely was a factor.
Yeah. So it does. So it is organic and it does evolve. And I think that, again, the challenges are kind of where it fits into your life and your relationships. And if you have kids, how important it is. And because I've seen what I didn't like about what was happening with a lot of the, and I say mostly the trans women and then the cross-dressers who are presenting as women, men to women, was like, okay, now you have to be transgender.
Yeah, I think
I think that's so dangerous.
Right.
I mean, it's
right.
like I've seen people, okay, we're on hormones, they're throwing up. It's like in order to be accepted in society, you had to pick a row, and it's like, I don't want to be in that row.
And
I mean,
people,
they don't understand.
People
society
really shouldn't be pushed.
Yeah, it's
they
like
need
in order to be
able to make
breathe,
this decision for themselves and
Right.
grow into the path that is their path and they need the time to do that. And,
That's right.
And so
it's not fair, right, to say
right.
because, well, if you've presented as a woman, you've been there, then you must be trans. You've always been trans, and we're going to put you in that box. And I think that's so dangerous and not healthy for people.
I mean, I agree. I think that for trans people do need the support that they need to be able to get that without question. But then people who are not should not be pushed in that direction.
Right.
And just because some two different groups of people may look similar superficially doesn't mean that they are similar.
That's true. Absolutely true. I had an experience years ago. I was doing my documentary on cross-dressers, and I was at a gay club where we filmed one of the couples out. And I was in the bathroom, and there were 5 women, myself, and then there was, a drag queen, a trans, a cross-dresser. We all looked alike. We're in the mirror and we're all in our little, well, I don't think I probably just look tired because I've been traveling all night, but we're putting our lipstick on and we had our heels on. And, I took a picture because we're all leaning in the mirror, and it was just really a cool thing to see how we, presentation on the outside it wasn't necessarily, we were all presenting, we could all fool. And in fact, I have another picture of 3 of the girls I had on my first season that, one I would say is more of a cross-dresser, and the other are trans and different stages, but pre-op, after op. Anyway, the 4 of us sitting on the sofa, you didn't know who was who. I mean, so on the outside, no one would know, really, that we were coming at it from all different ways. And when at that particular moment that we were all women and different, but we certainly came from all different walks of life and who we were in terms of identity, in addition to who we are as people. But I mean, in terms of just gender. So I think it's really dangerous to, and I think I really appreciate you coming out, and the CDs coming out, because they need to come out and have the conversation so our audience and everyone, straight people, trans people, allow them to have their voice. And, hiding in the shadows is not for anyone. No one should have to do that. And they need to have their voice. And, most of the people I've met that are cross-dressers, they're from all walks of life. I mean, they're doctors, they're construction workers, they're musicians, they're everything, just like people, just like anything else, I mean, they're not, I will say this, most of them are, and I would say probably even for the trans too, transgender is, it's funny, not science, math, not like hairdressers and interior designers. I mean, there's far few. If there's another trend, if you want a flip side, is that there's a real heavy, because math, as we know, is like music. It's the same kind of mind. It's like they're mostly kind of traditionally male type of like aptitude and positions. So that's I guess it's like the stereotype of. It's not like, no, they may want to cook or whatever. That's just a hobby. But in terms of their chemistry, in terms of their intellect, they're not in female type businesses. Have you found that too?
I
don't know.
I don't really have the experience to know for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, so what advice would you give to those today as you're looking at yourself and some of the younger people coming out as cross-dressers? I mean, what do you think?
I think the younger people are in a different place, and perhaps it's a better place in a lot of ways, in the sense of openness. And so that's really good to see. But I think for everyone, just to be true to themselves, not to be pushed in any particular direction.
Right, to stand up for, let it, I think you said let it breathe and let it evolve. So,
exactly.
Well, I want to thank you for being here and driving up from San Diego, and I look forward to having you back. I really do. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I want to thank our audience for joining us, and keep coming back as we look at gender identity in today's society. Thank you.